Okay.
All right.
Unit 5.1 skills.
8 minutes of cross-sex. Okay, so tell me when there's a minute left, and then we'll know.
Are you recording right now?
For the cross-sex, and also,
Wait for
do you have a
the question.
1 minute flag in there, and with that? what do you want?
They changed it to 8. It's normally 6, so it doesn't count.
It's gonna be 10 minutes, so it's difference.
Thank you.
Well, you shouldn't have started
I
soon.
thought
Yeah.
that was a
so.
state meeting.
No,
Yeah, but it's
Well-
still 4 minutes process.
No, it's
No,
8
4
minutes.
minutes for the testimony.
testimony, 8 minutes cross-sex.
You keep it going, just keep it going.
At this point, keep it going.
Yeah.
He'll just have to edit it.
All right, so Unit 5, Question 1. Why have the First Amendment rights been viewed as essential to the functioning of a free society, et cetera, et cetera? You may begin.
The Supreme Court declared in Texas v. Johnson, if there is a bedrock principle underlying the First Amendment, it is that the government may not prohibit the expression of idea simply because society finds the idea itself offensive or disagreeable. The principles stated in the First Amendment allow for a diversity of ideas and marketplace authority. These rights are essential because they allow citizens to question their government, which promotes the general welfare of society and protects minorities.
In order for a free society to function, the ability of citizens to address grievances to their government without violent means is essential. If the people can't speak freely, there is no individual liberty and leads to tyranny. With the knowledge of events through addressed grievances, the people have the ultimate say and check in government actions.
As seen in a 2013 Tea Party rally during the government shutdown, Speaker Boehner stated, "It is the right of the people to alter or to abolish government, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to have a beneficial effect on their safety and happiness." Boehner was referring to the Declaration of Independence and the natural rights philosophy. Both of these documents are reflected in the First Amendment and illustrate how important these rights are to all groups in society.
The freedom of religion has always been important for minority groups to gain their civil liberties, as demonstrated by assembling at places of worship to discuss their plans for equality. For example, the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, was a meeting place for civil rights activists such as Martin Luther King and Fred Shuttlesworth. The freedom of religion allowed them to meet with no government intrusion due to the establishment and free exercise clauses of the Constitution.
The right to petition and assemble is also important to minorities, as seen through the actions of many great civil rights activists such as W.E.B. Du Bois, Malcolm X, Cesar Chavez, and Ella Baker. Another case in which the First Amendment helped aid the progress of minorities was the Equal Educational Opportunity Act of 1974, which allowed for access to bilingual education. This was made possible after the civil rights activists relentlessly advocated for equal rights. The movement gained enough support to force lawmakers to put the policy into action.
Similarly, the Seneca Falls Convention has been viewed as a major stepping stone to equal gender rights. Without the First Amendment, the convention could have been dispersed and stopped women's rights from occurring. Institutions such as the National American Women's Suffrage Association gave women opportunities to express their rights to assemble in order to receive better pay, civil liberties, and the right to vote in the 19th Amendment. Without the rights guaranteed in the First Amendment, minorities and women would be unable to acquire new rights at all.
The First Amendment rights have all been limited in justifiable times in history. The key component to limitations is time, place, and manner imminent to the national security of the United States. In Coxby, New Hampshire, members of the Jehovah's Witness Church were arrested after participating in a march that did not have a license. Although the march was on the sidewalk, it was determined that the group was still disrupting foot traffic.
Because of the ruling in Cox, local governments were allowed to regulate competing uses of public forums by using a permit scheme to impose reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on those wishing to hold a march, parade, or rally.
As Justice Marshall proclaimed, the First Amendment serves not only the needs of the polity, but also those of the human spirit, a spirit that demands self-expression. The First Amendment is the embodiment that individuals have the right to vote their opinion and concern for both personal benefit and the prosperity of the government.
Minorities and women have demonstrated this value through their pursuit of liberties and civil equality. Without the rights expressed in the First Amendment, our free society would be in a state of stagnation and discord, and with these rights, free society can flourish. Thank you.
How much? 3:56, good, right on time, okay.
How are your First Amendment rights limited at school?
Well, your First Amendment rights are limited at school because the school has the right to deem those rights that are not necessarily progressing the mission that they are set to determine by the state, which is a mission to educate their students, such as in the case of Frederick v. Morris, when a student came with a Belongings for Jesus sign, the school determined that he was not adequately representing the school, and thus his speech was allowed to be limited.
Also, there's a gray line between speech and conduct. Conduct is the action you take. So if a girl was dancing in the classroom for no apparent reason, there's a difference between her speaking during class when she's not supposed to and taking action because she wants to support a certain cause, something like that.
What's happening at Reno? What's happening right here in this building today that affects the First Amendment, in your opinion?
Another limitation that we see on a day-to-day basis at Reno High is students aren't allowed to have unlimited freedom of speech. For example, you can't say swear words or cuss words in class because it's going against the moral and social code that the school is developing students to represent.
Is that taking away a right or protecting rights?
It's taking away your right to have unlimited freedom of speech, but it's protecting your rights to an education and to be able to function in a free society.
What about those who it's offensive to? What about their rights?
Well, that pertains to the mission of education. If the meaning of a school is to educate the students, and if these swear words and cuss words is limiting others, the majority, from being properly educated, then the school has a right to, in order to suppress those words in order for everyone to receive an education.
Okay, to go along with that then, is public safety a sound reasoning for limiting constitutional rights? Why or why not?
It is a sound reasoning because there's a line between common good and individual rights, where your rights end, another individual's begin. So you have to protect the common good when you are considering First Amendment rights and limiting them.
An example of this would be the TSA security checkpoints in the airports, because after 9/11 and all the terrorist attacks, we've started to realize that we need to protect the common good, even if there are rights that are being limited.
Another example of freedom of speech limitations for the public good is yelling fire in a movie theater, because while it is a freedom of speech, it is concerning and could be possibly harming to others around.
In what situations can someone's freedom of speech be limited, or freedom of religion be limited, sorry?
Can you rephrase that one more time? Sorry.
In what situations may someone's free exercise of religion be limited? On what basis would that be decided?
Well, in Cantwell v. Connecticut, the court established a ruling saying that the freedom of religion to establish religion was absolute, but exercising or acting it on a certain subject may be limited in certain situations.
Okay.
In cases where religion can be limited is in factors of extreme religion, such as occultists, where they invoke mass suicide, such as a mass suicide that occurred a few years ago that killed 400-some people. They followed a set guideline that could be considered religion. However, it inflicted harm on individuals. So if a religion were to start inflicting harm to individuals, then that religion can be suppressed.
Okay, then, is the Pledge of Allegiance a prayer? Why or why not?
The Pledge of Allegiance isn't a prayer because it's pledging allegiance to the United States of America, our government. That's not a specified religion. It's just pledging allegiance to a government institution. So it's not considered a prayer, and it's not really freedom of religion.
Going off what Tommy said, there is someone can take the opportunity to not do the Pledge of Allegiance if it is not part of their religious beliefs. In that, at Roy Gum, there was a Jehovah's Witness who didn't do the Pledge of Allegiance because it wasn't part of his religion.
If you took the words out, is it because the words "under God" was inserted in there that some people see it possibly as against their religious beliefs?
Not necessarily, because it's, by saying God, it's not really specifying it to one specific religion. God can be used to determine for multiple kinds of religions. So it's not specific to any one religion.
I think you could argue both ways on that one though, because while it isn't specifying which religion, some religions could not believe in a God at all, and that would be going against their religion by saying that.
It depends on your interpretation of under God, because on our money it says God, and people all use the money, so it depends on what interpretation you take when viewing the First Amendment.
2 minutes left, okay.
Is money free speech?
Money is free speech as illustrated through Buckley v. Vallejo. It's the court ruled that using money to support a candidate or oppose a candidate during campaign was a form of symbolic speech.
However, as we saw in the Citizens United v. FEC case, which overturned the ruling on the Vallejo case, money can be seen as a restriction of freedom of speech because it's manipulating the ideas of other people by using it, so it can actually be seen as more of a sense of property instead of speech.
Would the founding fathers have agreed with the Supreme Court's decisions that have essentially said that money is speech?
I do not believe that the founding fathers would, I don't think they would, I'm sorry.
He lost his contact,
Yeah.
so his eyes probably irritating
Well,
him.
explain
right now.
that, so.
Oh, nice. Oh.
If you need to go to the bathroom or something.
John, did you put it back in?
No, I spit it out. And I'm like blind, so it just, sorry.
You need to go find it?
Do you have your glasses?
No, they're in my house, so I don't might have to go on my, but anyway.
What was the question?
Sorry.
Would the founding fathers have agreed with the Supreme Court's recent decisions that have essentially said that money is speech? The First Amendment protects the unlimited expenditure of money in political advertising. Do you want me to reword it one more time?
No.
Okay.
John,
Sorry. I don't believe the founders would support the decision in these court cases because founders believe that funds and as amendments proposed to the original Bill of Rights that were almost ratified, they did not believe that funds necessarily were attributed to one's freedom of speech. The speech, because these funds would obviously segregate the rich from the poor in their ability to progress their freedom of speech, and that goes against what many of the founders' viewpoints were, such as James Madison.
I would disagree with John because at the time the founders were creating the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they weren't necessarily thinking about symbolic speech and the expansion of the First Amendment. The expansion of the interpretations of the First Amendment have increased today. I think they were interpreting the First Amendment as more of a literal base instead of symbolic speech and conduct and freedom of expression.
Okay, we'll stop there.
I'm gonna kind of throw out a term that as I've watched what you're doing and I hear what you're saying and those kinds of things,